everybody, it's the Heretic here. So I want to talk about my concerns at present with the Rittenhouse trial. One of the big ones circles around the rumors last night that there were two jurors who were holding out because they were afraid of backlash. And of course, the general inference being that they were afraid of finding Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty. It could very easily have been the other way around. But here's the thing. This is what concerns me, especially with this whole withholding evidence. And now the jurors are suddenly asking to see evidence. As I understood it, I may be mistaken here, that they're suddenly asking to see evidence, and they're asking all of these really technical questions. If their minds were already made up that he was guilty, like they were just 100% certain, they probably wouldn't bother with asking questions or looking at anything new if it was, up to them. This is a very high profile case. Nobody that did not want to be on this jury is on this jury. Nobody that wasn't 100% willing to be here is here. And that's very telling, because it means that some of those people wanted on this jury to make sure Kyle Rittenhouse was found guilty, and some of them wanted on this jury to make sure that he ended up not guilty. And sure, some of them probably wanted on there to try to make sure he got a fair and objective trial. But given my propensity for starting with the worst and working backwards, I'm going to go with everybody on that jury wanted to be on it to make sure that he was found guilty. And here's what concerns me, is under that premise, which could be false, what it means is that they started this trial off absolutely assured in their own minds of his guilt. And then as the trial went on, they saw evidence. And then they saw more evidence and more evidence. And by the time we got to a verdict, they had seen so much evidence that they couldn't, in good conscience, convict Kyle Rittenhouse. They couldn't do it. And of course, I'm assuming that they're all just fine, upstanding, moral people. Once they saw the truth, they just couldn't do it. But, and this kind of reconnects to the rumor, which is what it is. I think there's some validity to it, and for a lot of good reasons. But at the end of the day, it still remains just a rumor that they had reservations. I think what's happened is they've got this insane political pressure from the left and the Black Lives Matter movement and all these other jackasses to find Kyle Rittenhouse guilty. And the problem is they're good people, and they just can't reconcile sending a kid that they don't believe to be guilty to prison for the rest of his life. I mean, I'm just going to assume they're not total a-holes. So when something else presented itself, and this circles back to a video I made earlier, I think now they're trying to find some way to meet in the middle, or they're trying to find some way to find him guilty. They're looking for anything in this new video. I mean, if he was running down the street and somebody jumped out and startled him and he raised his weapon in their direction for a second and then lowered it, or he raised his weapon, perceived him to be a threat, there was a brief exchange, and then he lowered his weapon and went on. I mean, just anything. Even all they need is a moment of being able to reconcile in their minds when they lay their heads down at night that they were in the right convicting him. And it's tragically my experience, that's how most people are. Most people who want to do something that aligns with their ideological positions are just looking for the slightest hint, confirmation bias of evidence. And I think that's where we're at. I think it's what we're looking at. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'm maligning their character in error, and I apologize. But maybe they are just trying to be objective. Maybe they just want to be sure. And let's be frank for a moment, and this is going to piss some of you off. If Kyle Rittenhouse was running up and down the streets, shoving his weapon in people's faces, and threatening people with his weapon, then, I mean, he's lost the right to self-defense. Self-defense has to have some parameters, guys. And if he did do that, then he's lost them. But for God's sakes, make sure he was actually provoking people. Don't just get a half-second still frame that could indicate something and go from there. Okay? Because in the instance of him and self-defense, he has to make a split-second decision that will save his life. But in the sense of an event that happened and then stopped, there was a time span between the one and the other. The dynamics aren't the same. In other words, if we were running down the street and you passed me and you caught me out of the corner of your eye and you whipped around, you threw your gun up on me for a second, said, "Hey, who are you? What are you doing there?" And I said, "Hey, I'm the guy who owns this place. You know, chill, dude." And you went, "Oh, okay, sorry," and you ran on. That's not the same kind of split-second judgment that would occur if I was, out back and you Kyle Rittenhouse or somebody rounded the corner and threw their weapon up and was like, "Hey, what are you?" And I went, "Oh, God," and threw my gun up and went bang, 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 and shot them. Okay, my burden of provocation, those are two different burdens, in a sense. I don't know. These things this is getting weird, it's getting complicated, and the hell of it is, I think it's getting political, and that's a shame. Anywho, well, maybe that's heresy.